Italy. Lay in the area. Join the generation revolutionary clan. Inviting people, telling stories, finding her, making poems too. Inspire. Inspire. This is the KLA. This is the KLA. Hi everyone, here we are with our guest Derek. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Derek. I'm a podcaster, an animator, a bartender, and I've been doing improv for 10 years.
Great. So, where can our listeners connect with you online?
Anywhere you care to. I'm Derek's Dumb Hobbies, DEREK, Dumb Hobbies. I'm pretty active on those. I also have two podcasts. I have one called No Time for Gaming, where we play games you can beat in an afternoon. And then I have a podcast where I interview performers on their like how performing has affected their mental health and how they got started, called Open the Curtains.
Nice. And, well, you chose one of my favorite themes, obsessions versus passions, because many people say I'm obsessed by things I love, such as the arts. And, well, our first question will be about your ninja warrior performance to stand-up comedy and storytelling shows.
Okay.
How do you navigate the diverse challenge and skill sets required for each of these pursuits?
So for Ninja Warrior, I was 26, and me and my friends had kind of always talked about doing it. And I looked around, and I was the only one that was still roughly in shape. So I was like, if any of us are going to do it, it's got to be me. And I had a friend that had done it a few years ago, and it was one of those things of just, you can just apply, you can just do that. So I applied. I was told I'd hear back in 3 to 6 weeks, and 4 months went by. I hadn't heard anything. So I kind of stopped training, and then they're like, okay, you're going to be on in a month. So I just spent a month training as hard as I could, like finger strength. And it kind of took over my life. I was in the gym every day. I was bulking. I would wake up at 2 a.m. hungry because I was trying to gain. I was working out so much. I was just always hungry. And so it did take over my life. In terms of like performing while I was doing that, I think I had just stopped doing stand-up at that point, but I was still doing improv pretty regularly. At one point, I was on 7 improv teams, and it's a ton of fun to just schedule time where you're like, I'm going to go laugh for 2 hours in my week, and you just know that that's coming. So it makes it a lot easier to balance stuff out when you're like, oh, this is hard, this is stressful, but 7 o'clock tonight, I'm probably going to be laughing for 2 hours.
Well, this is great, and I always when you told me you are a ninja, I just thought about those guys with the black mask and all in black.
Oh, so I was on American Ninja Warrior, which is like it's a TV show where basically you do a really cool obstacle course that's incredibly difficult, and it is a blast. The people there are incredible. One of the guys who went right before me was a rock climber, and he just destroyed the course. And I came from a cheerleading, tumbling background, so I was really agile and like I was good at like on my feet, and I can move around. I can control my body weight, but just all the finger strength took me down in the end.
Oh, nice. Well, switching between competitive roles, tumbling, coaching, and comedic performance seems like quite a shift in focus. Mm-hmm. Can you share how you managed to transition between these different worlds, both physically and mentally?
So I grew up with a family member who was always cutting me down, and I didn't feel when I eventually moved away. I didn't feel comfortable just talking to people and having conversations. Like I was always
Mhm,
like very socially awkward and nervous, and I would just have this
mhm,
huge well of anxiety inside of me. So part of the reason I got into improv was I wanted to learn how to just be comfortable with people. And I started that in 2012. I had been coaching tumbling already from age 14. And then 2012, I was 22. I kept coaching until I was 30. So I didn't transition anything. I just kept going. I always enjoyed coaching because it was something I feel like I was confident in, and I knew what I was
mhm,
doing. And so for me, I was always trying to get to the level where I could be as confident off the out of the tumbling gym as I was in the tumbling gym. It's kind of different when you have social anxiety and you're like, I'm confident in this one location where all the conversations are about this thing that I really enjoy and love. Versus outside of it, when someone would ask me random questions like, "What kind of books do you like?" and I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I know any books." Ah, and so what improv taught me was after about 3 or 4 years of being an improv, I kind of had this realization of like, oh, I've had every conversation you could have on stage, and it's not going to be harder off stage than it was on. Like I've been yelled at on stage, I've been belittled, I've been made fun of, I've been loved on, whatever. And it just kind of became this thing of I realized like, oh, I can be my confident tumbling self off stage, and I can just be myself finally. And I started like enjoying talking to strangers and moving around, and I love it. So it's been really nice. When I travel now, like I can make strangers laugh, and we can bond and have fun. It's great. It's fantastic.
Oh, well, and I always say to the guests of this season, I'm finding some contact points. In your case, some years ago, I studied musical theater. It's not stand up, it's not improv, but I was also socially awkward,
Oh yeah,
and even having this podcast was a therapy against the
yeah.
against introversion. And uh, actually, introversion to me is not a disease. It's something I was born with, and I'm completely okay with this. But this transition between on and off stage,
Mhm.
after joining theater class, I learned is that it doesn't exist. We will still show
Mhm.
ourselves in the roles we are performing.
Mhm.
And when you told me about this, I was really remembering the days I was learning to be an actress. In fact, I'm not an actress. I'm not a good performer, but well, it helped me to give the start, to feel more comfortable with myself and
Yeah.
making mistakes.
Yeah. Podcasting is interesting because I what I love about it so far is that it's mostly one-on-one conversations. So it's a lot easier to
Yeah.
follow. It's a lot easier to not feel overwhelmed. And you get to interview like, oh, we already have all these interests together. Let's just talk about them. So it is really cool.
Oh, for sure. And finding humor in challenge. Let's talk about it. Stand-up comedy and improv
Hmm.
often involving finding humor in everyday situations, including challenge and setbacks. How do you incorporate your experiences from um, competition and coaching into your comedic performances?
So that's such a good question. In improv, you have to always like be listening and be there with your stage performer and your partner. So eye contact's really important, and it's a lot about being funny in the moment. stand-up's almost the opposite, where it's you do need to be there and present in the moment. Absolutely, that'll make you a better stand-up, but you also have to take these tragedies in your life and reflect on them and try to find a way to make them funny. And a lot of comedians have talked about it before, but it's a lot easier to deal with a tragedy in your life or hard times in your life if you find a way to laugh at them. And so it's just one of those things where, like, a friend of mine's dad died, and immediately he was making jokes, and I was like, if you're making jokes, I'm going to start making jokes. And like, we still joke about his dad died, and you'll see it make him sad every now and then, but also he laughs quite a bit at it, and it's just something that we are able to joke about and laugh about. And it's one of those things where it's like, this is horrible. Like, there's no positive in this in his life, that his father passed away. But now we get to laugh together a little bit more. And it's just, I think to an outsider looking in, it almost seems like sometimes we're being mean to him or whatever. But he's one of my best friends. I know he's okay with it because we're making him happy, and we're making him, he gets to think about his dad, but also we get to make him laugh while he thinks about his dad. And I think if you find a way to laugh at anything that's going on, that you know, like, there's nothing positive about this, but we can find a way. We know we're going to laugh about it later. Let's find a way to laugh about it now if we can. Let's get into it. And it's one of those attitudes that I've always really liked, of just like, hey, your situation's tough, but hey, I'm going to make you laugh about it. And just finding those people to surround yourself with is always a win.
I think this is the most beautiful part of being an artist, because, well, 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, I was in a tough situation. I almost lost my mom to a car crash. I was recently broken up, and my sister went to Middle East. I was really confused about everything. And the day after my mother's accident, I just thought, oh, what can I do? And then I closed myself in my house and started singing at the karaoke and drawing.
Yeah.
Oh, it really made me ease the pain. I think art is the best therapy for the worst moments in life. And improv comedy is a very difficult art, in my opinion. I love to watch comedy movies and animations, and I think to make someone laugh is harder than making someone cry. It's just an opinion.
I think it depends on your background. I think that's a very powerful statement, though, of just like, hey, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to go into my house and sing for a little bit. And I absolutely can relate to that, because I think a lot of times we are experiencing, like, you're never just sad. You're sad, you're depressed, you're feeling multiple emotions at once, and it can turn into these things that are hard to express for a lot of people. And just turning that into some sort of art is incredible. Whether it's singing a song that already exists, or you want to make a new one, whatever. For me, improv has always been like, or somebody said to me at one point, like, if you bring your real life problems into an improv scene, nobody's going to know that they're your real life problems. So for me, I would be like, oh, I'm going through a hard time with my girlfriend, or we just broke up or whatever. I would do breakup scenes. And like I would get to see those, and it's almost therapeutic. A buddy of mine always says improv is therapeutic, but it's not therapy. But it is therapeutic. You get to process emotions that you wouldn't have otherwise, and you get to do that with people. And so you might be like, your partner, hey, Janice, we need to break up. We need to talk. And then somebody else could come in as a purple spaghetti monster, and you're like, okay, got to break up with this purple spaghetti monster here. So it's really nice that you can process these things, but also you're almost forced to not take them seriously, because you don't know who else is going to add to this and in what ways. And the philosophy of improv is yes and. So if I'm trying to break up with my girlfriend, but you come in as a flying spaghetti monster, yeah, this flying spaghetti monster was supposed to be here, and I'm going to behave as if that's true. And it's just interesting, but it helps you navigate stuff. Like when I'm in a conversation and the I really want to talk to you about X, but somebody brings up Y. All right, now we're talking about Y, and maybe I'll get to talk to you again about X at some point. And it's just really freeing to feel like you can flow through these conversations and not feel like you're actually losing anything because you can always come back to it. And comedy is hard for a lot of people. Like almost every theater I've been a part of, which I'm very lucky in Orange County, we have a really beautiful improv scene that mostly preaches the same stuff, which is, hey, you don't need to be funny. We want you to feel like a real character. So we always focus on relationship and emotion. Like if you enter a scene with an emotion and then you establish a relationship, that is always going to be a good start. And then we can find the funny later. A lot of the times the funny comes from the audience enjoys seeing our performers struggle. Think about any sitcom you've ever seen. You don't actually want your sitcom people to be happy. You want to see them struggle in different situations. And part of what's relatable to that to me is I feel like a good person trying to live a good life with nice people surrounding me. And bad stuff still happens. There's always going to be struggles. There's always going to be problems. Nothing's perfect. But if you realize like, oh, every single person in the world is going through these things. Every single person in the world has problems and struggles. Improv is just shining a light on some of these. Like you'll relate, you'll laugh because you relate to it. You'll laugh because you went through a similar situation and now you get to see somebody deal with it in a different way. And it's just interesting to see what kind of problems you can stumble into. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
Okay. Well, just for your information, from one of these breakups, I wrote this story, Love Letter to the King. It's a
Cool.
dark humor comics, but it was really acid, I think. Now let's
I would
dive
love to
deeper.
read that, by the way, if you said that to me.
How would you differentiate between obsessions and passions in your own experience and pursuits?
That's a great question. I'm very lucky. I'm engaged. I'm getting married later this year, and I had my partner. Thank you. And I'm really not an angry person. I think I used to be an angry person, and I spent years trying to figure out what was causing it and how to get over it. And for me, I realized I feel frustrated with a lot of communication. And then a decade later, I meet my partner. We hit it off. We hang out. I'm hanging out with one of my best friends, and she sees me get angry at him, and she points out to me, I notice you get angry when you feel like you're not being heard. Like it's frustrating for me to feel like I'm not being heard. And that stems from my family member who like insisted I not be heard, kind of thing. So I spent a lot of my life trying to figure out how to communicate and be a clear communicator, and so I could convey my points and be as articulate as I wish I could be. And so for me, I realized like, oh, this isn't a passion. This is an obsession of mine. Like being able to communicate is an obsession. This is what I like doing. It's what I like thinking about. Whether I'm learning anything at all, I always will funnel it into how can I communicate like with this thing. And if it's coming into your mind when you're not even realizing it, I think it's an obsession. Versus passion, I think, is something you love doing for the sake of doing it. Like I am not good at playing guitar. I picked it up about a year ago, but I would say I'm passionate about guitar. I'm not good at most video games, but I'm passionate about gaming. Versus an obsession, like for me, I can put down a video game, I can put down guitar to go work on a podcast, because to me, it's fulfilling that obsession of just like, hey, let's communicate with more people. And I think it's very useful for everybody in life to kind of recognize your obsessions. Like I have a dog that's obsessed with being warm. Like, it doesn't matter what we're doing. If she's warm, she's happy. And
Oh,
it's fantastic for me to know that about her because I can help her do that. Um, so that's what it is. I think if you can identify what you constantly are gravitating towards or looking at, or even experiencing jealousy with, like a lot of times people think jealousy is a bad emotion. I look at jealousy as I get to identify what I care about through somebody else's success. I have a friend who's a voice actor, and he's a new character on a popular show, and I immediately was jealous, but not in a way of like, oh, he doesn't deserve that. I'm jealous in the way of, oh, I didn't realize I'd be jealous of that. Probably I want to get into more voice acting again. And it's just yeah, that's kind of my take. I think obsession is stuff you can't stop thinking about, and passion is stuff you choose to do to add value to your life.
it's a beautiful answer. Well,
What do you think? What
I
is
think
your take on that?
I think so too. Because when you are passionate with something, or even someone or some
Mm-hmm.
people, you you don't you don't I don't know, but you don't feel the you don't feel angry, or you don't feel anything negative if if you stop thinking about it for a while and do something else. But obsession, you need to do that every day, every time. And to be honest, I was never obsessed about uh, people. I never wanted to be a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of an authentic person. I really think if someone doesn't like me, well,
Yeah.
whatever.
I think that is common in a lot of artists, though. Like, they see themselves as a very authentic person, and they just want to find a way to show it to people. And I think that's where a lot of the art comes from. Is the first time I ever did mushrooms, and I was like, oh, I have this feeling I can't describe. I wish I could paint this. It was the first time in my life where I was like, oh, I really wish I was a better painter, because this feeling is indescribable, but I know what it would look like to me. And like, I don't know. It's hard. Sometimes feelings are impossible to convey, and that's why we respect like fantastic artists. Is you're like, oh, they were feeling something for this. Like, this is their feeling represented.
Yeah. Well, I will never be one of. I will never understand the artists who just draw about one thing, or
Mm-hmm.
even play one kind of role, or sing only one kind of thing. I will not. I will never understand. But if it comes from their heart, from their soul, that's okay.
Yeah, it is interesting to like I love seeing my friends work. Like, I've read scripts that aren't finished and stuff like that, and it's just interesting to like find out what your friends think are funny or interesting, or what they think is beautiful. And I think as an artist, it's really tough to just, because it's never enough. Like, one thing we talk about in improv is, if you had the best scene of your life, it's a tissue out of the tissue box. Now it's gone. If you had the worst scene of your life, tissue out of the tissue box. It's gone. You're on to the next thing. And art's very similar, where you almost don't even get to linger and enjoy a finished product. Like, when I was animating, you'd spend 100+ hours on an animation, and you'd look at it when you're done, and you're like, this is 6 seconds long, and I could have done better in some areas, but I have to move on to the next project. And I don't know if you feel that as an artist, but it like, you could noodle on something until it's an inch thick of paint, but it's never going to feel fully done. You almost have to just decide when you're done with it. So to me, it's always been like, what kind of art do I enjoy doing that I can express myself in, that I'm not going to get tired of doing as I'm doing it. And for animation, that was really tough for me. I have ADHD. Like, it's hard for me to focus on something for 100 hours, to still care about it 3 months after I've started on it. But I discovered podcasting when I got laid off from animation, and I was like, this is more up my alley, where I get to have these conversations and share these feelings and thoughts, and I get to experience that real time with somebody, and then all I have to do is edit it for a couple hours. That's only like 5 hours out of my life that I get to enjoy the whole process of. That's fantastic to me. So I think every artist struggles with like, oh, I'm bad and I'm never going to be good at, I'm never going to be as good as blank. But I think if you see somebody who's a talented artist, it's because they love it so much it became an obsession. And you have to find where your passion and obsessions overlap, so you can find these points where you're going to excel, in spite of all the obstacles. You're still always going to have problems and XYZ come up, but if you can find a way through those and find a way to just spend your time how you love spending your time, it's incredible. If you can achieve that, you're a successful artist. I don't care if you're making 10 grand or 100 grand a year. Like that's huge. That's such a satisfying thing in your soul to have this outlet that you can experience with other people or share with other people.
That's the spirit, I think. If we do something to just to be rich or famous in a certain time, we will get lost.
Yeah. Well, there's always that question of like, if money was no object, what would you do with your time? And like a few months into podcast, I was like, well, I'd still podcast. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool to know. Like, because I love it. I started out interviewing performers on like how they got into performing and their mental health. And I did that because I have a friend who I love working with who's a licensed therapist, and it seemed like a no-brainer. Like we could succeed doing this, and I think this would be interesting to hear. But part of what I also did was I'm going to interview everybody in my local improv community, and I'm going to get to know people better. So I've known some of these people for 5 years and maybe never had a full conversation with them because we've never done a show together, never been on a team together. They have their own friends, whatever. So maybe we've been in groups of circles and like had conversations that way, but never one-on-one. And so I started pulling people aside one-on-one to have conversations with them, and people would be like, why are you doing that? You're pulling them away from the group. And so when that turned into podcasting, now a lot of people are like, that makes more sense. And it's beautiful to me that even if I died tomorrow, I've brought in my community that I care about a little closer together. And that is, I don't think I could ask for a better legacy than that. Like, even if nobody remembers me for that, that's fine. I still have already done it, because I've had people be like, hey, people have reached out to me about my episode and said it was their favorite episode, or they didn't know that I was going through these things, and I got to share that, and now people know, and I was worried about it, but now other people are like, oh, I also go through these things and problems, and I love it. I love it. So I think you probably would have a similar answer. If you had never had to work again, what would you do? I guarantee you'd still make art. It feels like it's a part of you based on what I'm seeing in your background and what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I do it for 90 years, and I really enjoy. I started just sharing my poems and songs.
Mm-hmm.
It was a escape route, but
Yeah.
with the time, it was evolving until it became what is today, a shared experience. And well, I hope next year or in the coming seasons, I bring a co-host with me. That's my newest challenge.
So for me, I have two podcasts. I had three, but one of my co-hosts kept getting sick, so we just haven't been recording as much. But basically, I just looked at like, who do I want to spend more time with? Who do I love spending time with that I never feel like I get enough time with? And I asked those people to be my co-hosts. And it's people I like learning from. It's people I think are funny inherently. It's people I respect for one reason or another. And it's just, even if nothing else works out, I knew I would just enjoy spending more time with these people. So all of my co-hosts are just people I admire in some way. And I just was like, hey, if I could have you in my life more, that's a win already. And it's been working out really well. I really like it. So that's how I recommend finding a co-host if you're in the market.
Okay. Uh, and well, this is a common question, and let's see your answer. Who are the most influential people in your life?
Oh, influential. I mean, I've made a lot of decisions. I don't know what influential means for me, actually. That's a good question. Mike Birbiglia is huge because he's a stand up comedian who I always looked at with enormous respect. And I loved his storytelling aspects, and it informed me in a lot of ways. Like when I was doing stand up, I was always trying to do stories, and it was because of that, because of him. And later, when I realized, like, oh, maybe I don't love stand up as much as I love telling stories, I started getting into storytelling shows. And part of that was I started listening to the Moth podcast, which is an NPR podcast where they tell real life stories. And I realized, like, passions can change, but obsessions don't. So the passion was stand up for a while. And I realized, oh, this doesn't line up with my obsession of storytelling in the way that I would like, because I want the story to be the front runner, not the comedy necessarily. And so I found a way to kind of pivot and shift that. And some people are like, "Oh, you quit stand up. You failed at stand up." I've never looked at it that way. I looked at it like I learned a lot about myself and I learned more about what I cared about. I knew I cared about telling these stories. I thought it was going to be through the avenue, the lens of stand up. And it shifted. Now I just do straight storytelling shows. And people are confused by that. They're like, "Oh, improvised stories?" No, no, no. We meet once a week for a month. We curate these stories. We talk about like what we're curious about and what is interesting, and we build these stories together. And it's a really wonderful experience. Um, so Mike Birbiglia is huge. I don't know. I've been surrounded, and I think part of this is by choice and part of this is pure luck. I've tried to surround myself with people that are really good at things, and it doesn't matter what it is. But just I can respect the hustle of it. I admire a lot of I admire a lot of people around me, and so to say like who's the most influential is almost a disservice to I think a lot of people in my life. I'm friends with a DJ named Andre Wilson, and he is an incredibly kind person who's super charismatic. And I met him when I was going through my absolute worst of social anxiety phase. And I met this super kind, charismatic man. And I was just like, man, he's 27. I would love to be that kind and charismatic by the time I'm 27. And just like looking at him and studying him, I learned a lot. I think a lot of life should be, what do I admire in this other person? How can I do more of that within myself? So I think just constantly taking traits from people that you really like, oh, they have a beautiful smile. And it's like, oh, when do they smile? They smile when someone's talking because they like listening to somebody. And like, oh, I can smile when people are talking to me. It's encouraging for that person. So like, just taking these little traits from people that I admire and trying to add them more to myself isn't always easy, but it's something I think I can do. I can take stuff like if you ask me a question where I'm like, oh, that's an amazing question, I'll find my own version of that question and I'll just add it to my podcast. And like, I think that's all life is. Art is being inspired by other people. Well, I'm trying to be a better communicator. So who inspires me in forms of communication? And it has been a lot of stand-ups. Mike Birbiglia is one. Bill Burr has been another one. Where Bill Burr, I don't think I'm anything like. I think he's a lot more charismatic and energetic and angry on stage, whatever. But the way he tells stories is interesting, and I can be inspired by the way he formats a story or the way he goes on a bunny trail, but then brings it back. I don't know if I answered your question, but it's just fun to talk about.
Oh, yeah, I could make a survey from this question because many people give the same answer, and some other people like you, they gave me different answers. I think around 80% of my guests say my parents.
Oh, interesting.
And, to the other 15%, my spouse, my husband, my wife, etc.
My spouse has been hugely influential on me, but I was inspired well before her, and I think I met her because I've turned myself. I've fixed a lot of the stuff I wanted to fix about myself. Like I couldn't make eye contact, I couldn't have conversations with strangers, all that jazz. And I really started hitting it, like getting good at that around the same time I met my spouse. And I don't think I would have hit it off with her if I didn't work on that. So it's just one of those things where it's like anytime I see somebody like struggling, they're in a pit, they're in a rot, they just don't know what to do with themselves. I'm like, look, you'll figure it out as long as you're trying to figure it out. What's important is that you do try to be inspired by people. You try to be influenced by people in some way that that you want to like turn yourself into the person you want to be. And as long as you're honoring your true self, I think that's always going to work. So for me, I don't think it's my parents. I think I've tried to avoid acting like them in a lot of ways. And not because they're bad people at all. I think they're very nice people. But they don't know their opinions on things. They haven't seen much of the world outside of their town. I asked my dad why he hangs on to his 5-bedroom house when it's only him living there. He goes, where would I move? Everywhere within a mile of here costs the same. And I'm like, you can move more than a mile away. He goes, no, I like it here. So it's like, I want to go out and experience the world, and I don't feel like he does. So I don't think I'd be as inspired by him as other people maybe.
Oh, well, and I would say you and another person say my friends, everyone I know around me,
Yeah.
and it's completely valid. I think family is always will be always very influential part on who we are. Of course, we grew up inside our families,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone we meet, especially introverts, we give the value. I don't know. I give much value to people I meet and I like. I give too. Sometimes I think I give too much value, and some people will think, "Oh, you are obsessed with him, with her." No, it's not. I just want to know more the person and see if I really want to have a long-term relationship. And in this case, I'm not telling about love relationships. I'm telling about friendships and
Yeah.
so on. I think I'm really selective to bring new friends to my life, and it's not bad. It's really good. It only brings us advantage.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has their own like rules for like what they need to do to be successful. Like if you feel like, well, I heard in like the 8th or ninth grade, like you're more influenced by your 5 closest friends than you will be your parents. And I always thought that was interesting. That's from a very young age. I started surrounding myself with friends that I admire. And I think that people probably do pick their family a lot because a lot of people associate influence with whatever community they're involved in. And a lot of people, their community is their family. Like if they have a big family and they get together every week, that's a community to them. Whether they think about it like that or not is very different. But for me, I moved away from my family, so I had nobody for a long time, and so I had to like start surrounding myself with almost this Iron Man armor of friends again, of just like, okay, who's over here, and like start bringing these people together, and it's that has worked out wonderfully for me in terms of happiness. I love surrounding myself with people I admire, and so for me, my community has become my improv community. My friends in LA who have their own friend group, and I get to go and interact with a whole nother friend group, but they're all very sweet, lovely people. And I think wherever you spend your time or whoever you surround yourself with is your community. So if you don't like those people and you're like, I don't love doing this, find a new community. You can find one. It sucks to start over, and it sucks to have to take that time to get to know somebody again, but I think you'll be a lot happier for it. And if you have a community of artists you like spending time with, that's awesome. That's so cool. And I don't think anybody ever regrets that. Like, I think we all have moments where we'll we'll look back in our life and reflect on like, oh, I really miss hanging out with that group. And it's that community that you used to have that used to hang out and be together. Maybe they're not around anymore. Maybe they all scattered and moved away after high school or college. But I don't know. That's never going to go away. I think if you all got together again, you'd still have that community.
Oh, for sure. I must say, the art community, to me, I call them my art family.
Yeah.
I have my blood family, and some some people I enjoy the company, others not too much. But my art family, they are always there for me,
Mm-hmm.
and they are growing every day.
Yeah. And I think that's wonderful. I think as soon as you can find, I think in terms of passion and obsession, I think if you can find a community in your passions, you'll kind of naturally be steered towards your obsessions because other people will be interested in the same things as you. And they'll be talking about something where you'll find your head like turning, like, I have to hear more about this. And for me, that's always been a clue as to what I'm obsessed with. And so like when I notice like someone's like starts a story and I'll just be like, yes, tell me everything. I can't wait to hear this story. I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that I'm a 33-year-old man and I've found a lot of stuff I really enjoy doing. And I just can't wait to spend the rest. If I spent the rest of my life doing what I'm already doing, I think I'd have a very happy life. So I can't wait.
Oh, well, you are 2 years younger than me, so we belong to the same generation.
Yeah. Like I said, good people are going to have problems. Our generation's full of them.
Oh, for sure. And in what ways do mindfulness practices help you stay grounded and maintain perspective on your passions and obsessions?
So mindfulness for me it means two things. Experiencing gratitude, I think, goes a long way for mindfulness, like knowing what you're thankful for in your life. A lot of people recommend keeping a gratitude journal where at the end of the day, every day, just write down 3 things you're grateful for. And I think a lot of people don't do that at all. I've visited family members where I'm like, it feels like a competition to see whose life is worse. But I want to hear like, what are you grateful for in your life? Because you guys aren't dead. Like, what's going on in your life that you're thankful for? You got married last year and you haven't told me anything about it, kind of thing. So I think experiencing gratefulness goes a long way. And everyone I've kind of find myself gravitating towards or being interested in, I think does that. Like they have some sort of reminder of gratefulness in their life. And I think that goes a long way. The other thing is just finding ways to be present in the moment. I started playing guitar about a year ago, and I did that because I wanted to have a hobby away from screens, but very quickly into learning it, I realized like, oh, I can't be anywhere else. I have to be right here in this moment to play this instrument because it's hard. It's not something I'm naturally talented at. I've had no music. I really feel like I haven't had a huge appreciation for music in my life until the last year or so. And it's been life-changing. It's been wonderful. So in terms of mindfulness, find things that bring you into the present moment and let you be yourself in that present moment and find things you're grateful for. And I think that's going to carry you so much further than anything else.
Oh, for sure. I do journaling, and I'm a blogger, so
Yeah.
I stopped blogging for many years, and I was happy to return blogging this year. The name of my blog is really funny. Rice Mishap, Cake is Light. It's not about food, but
Okay. I thought it'd be for sure about food.
but I talk about life from my female point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I think since I turned 35, I got obsessed with reconnecting with my female self.
Mm-hmm.
Because many people think I had to be Wonder Woman, and I was never been Wonder Woman since I
Yeah.
was a child. But I was not so dependent on others. I think I'm a really different kind of woman, and I'm happy with it. And in this blog, I show my adventures with my uh, my my dating adventures plus my daily life adventures and business growing adventures. Everything's there. I put it all together, and it's my my mindfulness practice because I turn off all screens and uh, think a little about what happened to me during the week, and then I write. I sit down and write.
That's nice. That's such a lovely sentiment too, because your blog is as you putting yourself out there for other women to relate to, or whoever wants to read it relate to. So that's awesome. I really like hearing that. That's making me want to start a blog.
Oh, it's a great therapy, and well, I come from a family of self called female warriors. I put this on my on the podcast opening theme too, but yeah, I can fight a war with my guns, and my guns are not exactly screaming at people and telling how strong I am.
Mm-hmm.
I show my creative side and sweetness in life, and that's okay. I feel much comfortable and soft when doing this instead of trying to be someone I've never been.
That's a beautiful sentiment. I really like that. I think whether you want to or not, everyone in life is going to have some influence on the world, and I think, um, like, and then yeah, we'll probably be forgotten. So for me, my take has always been, if I can make the people around me life just even 1% better, great. I think I've done a great job. There's that one statistic, like if you get 1% better at something every day, you're 35% better by the end of the year. That's huge for me because I have ADHD where my interests are here, and here. And I can't spend 8 hours doing something every day. So what I do is I just break my day up into lots of little bits. And if I can get 1% better at guitar today, I've done a wonderful job because I started a little more than a year ago now, and I'm way better than I thought I'd ever be. But also, I'm not nearly as good as I want to be. So I still have plenty of room to grow. And I think if you're just making people's lives even 1% better when they read your blog, you're doing a fantastic job of just uniting whatever community you care about. And it sounds like womanhood's very important to you. And if you're blogging about that, other people get to experience womanhood through your eyes, and maybe it brightens up their view of womanhood a little bit. I think that's such a beautiful sentiment.
Oh, for sure. Well, from the second month, I had 11 subscribers, and to me, it's a success.
Yeah. I have one podcast that's a lot more successful than my other podcast. And for me, but they say like when you start a podcast, you should be shooting for 5% growth. So if you have one listener a month, 5% growth is basically getting to a second listener. And we've been doing it less than a year, and we've gotten a lot more listeners than we've been expecting, and that I still think that's beautiful. And yeah, the numbers aren't very high. Like we average like 30 listens an episode. But when you find out the average podcast only has 20 listeners an episode, you're like, "Oh, we're doing wonderful." So it's I don't know. I think you have to tailor expectations. Like if you went to into every art project like, oh, if this doesn't make $1 million, I'm a failure. You're hurting yourself because you're setting yourself these impossible expectations. But if you say, I want to put more beauty into the world, and you put it out there, and then 10 people see it, wow, 10 people got to experience what I think is making the world more beautiful. I think that's incredible.
Oh, for sure. Well, and my next question, it has something to do with it. If your life could take a radical turn, what would that be?
My life could take a radical turn. I feel like my life is only radical turns.
Yeah, you are getting married.
I'm getting married. I spent 7 years learning animation, and then I worked in it for 2.5, and then got laid off, and nobody's hiring still. So that was a radical turn of just like I settled into a company. I worked there for about 7 months, where I was like, if I worked here for the next 5 years, I think I'd be happy. And then boom, laid off. So that was a radical turn. I did some traveling alone. I started podcasting. That was a radical turn where it's like, oh, I'm interested. Like, I really am interested in this. Hold on. Oh, I might need to sneeze. I'm so sorry. It's not coming. Um, so, man, if my life could take a radical turn, I think it's going to happen whether I want it to or not. And I think I'll adjust to it. If I got to choose the radical turn, oh, I have an uncle I've never met who dies and leaves me $1 million. That'd be a huge radical turn for me. But I don't know. I think I've built a life I'm happy with, and radical turns are happening anyways, so I'm just going to deal with them. I don't know. I don't wish more radical turns on my life, but I'm happy for where I've landed, and I'll keep trying to find ways to land in a happy space.
Oh, well, I must say, me too. My 2024 is a huge radical turn. I didn't. I started with to grow up, and well, I'm starting to do my first 3 online courses. I was trying to do them for years, and they will finally go on air next month. I'm so happy.
Nice. What are your courses in?
Drawing courses
Okay.
on Udemy.
Yeah.
I'm doing the sustainable drawing, and I'm also doing drawing basics course. Well, many things. And
One. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I started. I will through release the courses next month, not now. And the season started with many guests, more than I thought. I thought I would get. At this time of this year, I would have only 2 or 3 guests, and I have almost all the year full.
Nice. That's a good problem to have, or an unexpected problem. That's awesome. I wanted to recommend it to you because it helped me when I was animating. There's a website called Line of Action, and it's just people posing that you can. It's basically life drawing, but it sets timers. So it's like these next 10 drawings you only get 10 seconds, and then the next ones you get 1 minute, and then the next ones you get 5 minutes. So highly recommend that if you're wanting to work on drawing more. But maybe you don't want to draw people. I don't know, but recommend it to anybody who cares.
Okay, I love to do gesture drawing. I do it every week. It's really important. And another radical turn is some new people with joins in my life. I'm avoiding to say, oh, this I'm starting a new relationship, because I'm really in a really starting something with someone, and he's not I don't it's safe for work, but he's not happy with me, and I love it. Well, I really want more radical turns in my life, and if your life is also a huge radical turn, good for you.
I think a lot of people want something to change in their life, but they want it to happen to them. And I think if you seek out like the next adventure, I think you're saying radical turn, but I think adventure almost. And I think if you challenge yourself in any way, you're succeeding. If you're scared of something and you follow that fear and you go challenge that fear, I think you're succeeding. as artists, it's sometimes hard to express ourselves. So if we find a new way to express ourselves that we enjoy, I think that's a radical turn in a life, because you can all of a sudden find like, oh, I'm happier doing this, or this is not what I thought it was going to be. And so I don't know. I think radical turn for me means find the next thing that you're scared of, find the next thing that causes fear in you, and find a way to challenge that.
Yeah, and dare to jump. I remember my therapist told me, don't be afraid of doing anything. If you are afraid, do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's the benefit of improv to me, is you're going to be in 1,000 situations, and if you hear that, don't let that scare you away from trying improv. I think every single person should try an improv class at some point. Some theaters are better and more welcoming than others, so I'm sorry if you don't have a local theater that's what you want it to be, but all the ones we have here in Orange County are very open and welcoming, and we start off very easy. Basically, it's games like, hey, say your own name, and like we get to know each other's names, and it's nothing hard. And then eventually you'll do scenes that are very curated, like, hey, we're focusing on this one aspect of communication. Let's focus on that. And it's very easy to look at like the final product and say, I could never do that. But what you're not seeing is like all the steps we take to get to that final product. Improv is one of those things where people are like, I'm going to improv practice. Like, how do you practice improv? Don't you make it up on the spot? It's like, yes, but we practice all the tools we need to be as clear as possible and to convey as much as possible that we're trying to convey. If you were like, I'm going to go draw, people would be like, you don't practice art, you just make it. You'd be like, you're ridiculous. I need to practice constantly. And I think if you find stuff in your life that you don't mind practicing, you're winning.
Oh, for sure. Well, I think you already answered another question I would ask, but I'll ask anyway. Can you share with us a little bit of your morning routine and your mindset for you show up yourself every day?
My morning routine is I wake up. I usually have a glass of water and a little snack, and then walk my dog for as long as I can. So typically about an hour. And that's how I like to start my day every day, is just get a little exercise in and do that. After that, if I can, I'll go to the gym. If not, so I break my day into thirds essentially. So I have a morning, an afternoon, and a night. If my fiance is free, my night I'll try to dedicate to her. So that gives me 2 chunks in the day I'm trying to fill. Mm-hmm. So as soon as I'm done walking my dog, I'll start my next chunk. So today I'm gonna play some video games because today I'm gonna edit a podcast, but that'll be my morning chunk, and I'll do that. And then basically what I do is with my ADHD, I have impulse control, so I'll basically quote unquote hide my phone from myself and just sit in the place I need to sit in. So for me, that's gonna be my office chair where I can just start editing. And so all I do is I open my computer and I open my program and I just start. And if I get nothing else done, I'll at least have started on it. I can come back to it easier, stuff like that. Because for me, the difficulty is starting it and getting distracted while I'm doing it. So that's how I'll do that. And then for my afternoon, if I've succeeded in my morning activity, I'll just do whatever I want. So I'll do a guitar, I'll do some video games, whatever. And then usually I'd have to go to work or something. So I'm bartending now as my job. I'm looking for animation work, but it doesn't seem like that's going to come back anytime soon, or at least not in a way I would like it to. And until then, I'm just going to keep doing my interests, which is podcasting, storytelling, video games, guitar, playing with my dog, spending time with my girlfriend. And if I can find a way to make money podcasting, I don't think I'm ever going to do anything else. So for me, I try to devote a third of my day, at least 2 or 3 times a week, to just working on podcasting. Whether that's having the podcast where I'm recording with people or editing. And I think for me, it's just about finding my schedule that I like to do with that. So for me, I like to wake up, walk my dog, podcast. And I'm very food motivated. So I break up my day by breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I can't wait to get to lunch. I'm going to get as much done as I can before lunch, that kind of thing. That way I have that built-in reward for me.
Oh, well, I think in this podcast you are the second person I talk with ADHD, and I was it's interesting because I have very uh, people people nearby with this condition,
Mm-hmm.
and they are really messy at doing anything. It's chaotic, but if you have a routine, things really go. Well,
So,
in my case, I'm supposedly with the Asperger syndrome, and I'm addicted to routine. I need to do my exercise, drink my water, and drink my green juice.
did I lose you? I think
Oh,
you froze. Okay, we're back.
something happened. Yeah,
We're back.
it's freeze. Oh, we are back. Oh
I,
my
I I agree completely though. Finding a routine is huge. Like find one that you like and you can stick to. I do like to wake up with a glass of water. I usually take some vitamins, vitamin D, whatever, and it just feels like that's a nice start to my day every day. And I read some book. I think it might have been like the 4 Hour Diet or something, where he talks about you don't need to like if you want to get on a diet, you don't need to change breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You only need to figure out breakfast. Like figure out how to do a healthy breakfast, and once you're really good at that, then shift into doing a healthy lunch. And for me, I kind of just adopted that mentality of just like, okay, I don't need to figure out everything at once. I just need to figure out the first thing. And so for me, for like starting a podcast is scary. Like I don't really know what I'm doing. Um, but I have this sound booth now where I can spend some time in it. And for me, I was like, oh, the first step is just booking a guest and booking a co-host. I can do that. And then after I booked them, I was like, oh, I got to figure out what software to use. I can do that. And then after that, you record, and you're like, okay, I can figure out how to edit. Let's get rid of the ums, some pauses, whatever. And then I'm a year on now, and it's like, oh, I'm better at all these things. So I think it's important to have like goals and stuff you're trying to hit. But part of my goals is just every day I want to wake up, glass of water, walk my dog, whatever, and go from there. And people are like routine can be goals. Like make it part of your routine to just do something related to your goals. I don't know if that answers anything, but I like
Oh,
it.
for sure. I really like your answer. I think routine is really important to me. Since I started having a routine and depending less on my parents' routine, I live it with them until 3 or 4 years ago. No, yeah, 4 years ago, 2020. And it was great because I could feel more productive, I feel more creative, making my own routine and starting my day the hour I wish and finishing my day the
Mhm.
hour I wish without feeling guilty of sleeping late or waking up later. Well, if I do everything, if my routine fits my day, that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't need to wake up 5 a.m. And sleep at 10 to show I'm working on something.
Yeah. I think it's important for people to just schedule time for themselves in their day too. Like, I don't know how you like to do your art, whether it's in public or alone, whatever. But like, if you weren't scheduling that into your day, I think it's always harder to achieve. Like for me, I don't have any. I don't think I'm ever going to be the best guitarist in the world. But if I spend 10, 20 minutes every day working on something, I think I'm a success as a guitarist right now. And maybe that'll change. Maybe I'll get to a point where I'm playing more hours in the day. But right now, 30 minutes a day is fun for me. And sometimes I'll pick it up and I'll just have it in my lap all day while I'm watching TV. And other days, I barely touch it. But I always try to get at least 20 minutes in every day. And that to me is enough. Like, spend the time doing the things you love. And it sucks if it costs money, whatever, but find hobbies that you can enjoy doing without that. I walk my dog every day. That's fun for me. I was going on walks without a dog. I like it even more with a dog. I highly recommend it.
I miss having a dog. My dog, she passed away 2 years ago, and I still miss her. She was
Yeah,
really
I'm sorry to
smart,
hear that.
and she was really smart and exigent. She wanted to eat some only one kind of food, and she also loved to walk. And after returning from walking, she wanted to eat the snack.
Yeah.
Well, she was really exigent, and I really loved her. She was really funny.
Yeah. I mean, add value to your life. If you like having a dog, I would say absolutely. If you can, get another dog. I think having a dog in my life is incredible, and I know I'm gonna be absolutely devastated when I lose her. So I'm sorry you had to go through that, and I hope you find another dog that you love just as much.
Okay. Oh, well, I have plans when I finally have some stability with podcasts and courses. Yes, I will. I want to get a new dog for sure. I really miss this connection. Well, and what our conversation is great, but we are at the five last questions.
Okay.
The first one, about future. Uh, what's your end goal?
What's my end goal? Oh, so I've always pursued happiness, and I think a lot of my friends are a lot more financially successful than me, but I'm happier than all of them. And I think it's because I try to surround myself with those people that I admire, and it makes it easier for me to uh, see them meet their goals, and then I get to meet mine. I always set a 5-year goal, a 1-year goal, whatever, and I have a lot of 1-year goals every year. So, like last year, I wanted to get better at cooking. So the future for me then was I'm going to get better at cooking. I think you set the goals for the things you meet, and then you work backwards from there. Like, how do I get to them? And that becomes your future if it can. So for me, I want to get married. I want to own a house. I want to not stress about money. Those are my 3 things. And right now, my biggest goal that I'm working on is trying to not stress about money. So I don't know. I don't know what my future looks like, but I'm happy with my present, and I'm going to keep living in the present as much as possible, working towards a future that I enjoy.
Uh, um, I think just like you, I break in smaller chunks. I really want to. I have big goals, and I don't tell anyone what they are, because when I told some people I had big goals in a certain way, they didn't happen. So I started to break into smaller chunks and give small steps. It's a wise decision because well, I don't feel I failed at something because everyone fails one day. I'm we shouldn't consider ourselves a failure if we haven't achieved the big goal yet.
Yeah, and I think goals shift. So if you start out with a goal of, like, let's say I want to have a podcast that pays for my everything in my life, you got to work backwards from there, and you have to start a podcast. Like, you have to do the first step. And I'm reading a really wonderful book series right now called The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. And there's a lingering question for one of the characters: what's the most important what's the most important thing a man can do? And in the early books, he's like the next step, or he's like the first step. And then in the later books, he realizes it's the next step. So I don't think you need to have your whole future planned out ever. I think what you need to do is have a future in mind that you'd like to get to, and then just find your next step on your way towards it. our paths aren't ever going to do this. They're never going to go straight up, straight towards your path. Your paths are going to go here and then sideways, and then we're going to plateau, and then now we're heading back, whatever. So I think as long as you're just taking that next step towards whatever you're interested in, I think you're succeeding. That's all we can do as humans.
I completely agree with you. Well, I don't. All I know is I really make my mind stop daydreaming, because I daydream a lot. I think it's all creative people daydream a lot.
100%.
And go back to earth and work on the smaller goals. It's easier and it's much better. Well, uh, keeping on this theme, are there new challenges or adventures you are looking forward? You told me you want to cook. Well, I want to learn how to bake cakes and do some beautiful desserts, because mine, they look messy.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever made a beautiful looking dessert, but they all taste good, and that's all that matters to me. What was the question? I'm so sorry. I started thinking about cakes, and now I can't think about it.
Yeah, the challenges and adventures, I would say.
Oh, that I have planned. I mean, getting married is a huge one. Like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you have a successful wedding when it feels like it's a big party, but there's all these expectations put on it? That other people are like, oh, did you invite these people? Did you invite these people? It's like, no, I invited the people that I care about, and that's enough for me. So that's a big one. That's a big challenge for me. Storytelling shows so far have been, I've done maybe a total of 10 storytelling shows, but they've constantly been changing, where I used to do a storytelling like competition show, and I realized the competition was the least fun part of that for me. So I just got rid of it and started doing just basically the Moth storytelling. And part of that was I was just jealous that I never got to go on and do the Moth, because I don't live in a place that I have access to that easily. And I'm in Orange County, where they do shows in LA, so it's easier for me than some people, but it still just isn't. I just can't get there at a 7:00 on a Wednesday night kind of thing. And so for me, the next challenge is, how do I do more of these? How do I find time for more of these? Everyone I've done has been incredible. You start out with a cast, you come in, they tell their stories, they're fine. You don't get as much out of them as you like, and by the end, you're like, that was an incredible story. That's the next challenge for me, is just finding ways to add more of that to my life. Because if I can, right now I consider it volunteer time. I'm volunteering in my community. I don't get paid for these. I don't make any money from the shows. All the money goes towards the theater that I'm a part of. And that's perfectly fine with me for now, but I would also like to, make some money for this time that I'm spending. And I think as soon as I get to a point where people are interested in paying me for that, that's a huge success for me. I have applied to work for like NPR and stuff like that. I've applied to Blue Man Group a handful of times, because to me, that seems like a way to make money through improv. And I don't know where life's going to take me. I don't know my next challenge. I kind of just like get interested in things and pursue them until I'm not interested anymore, and see where that takes me. The good thing is now that I kind of have realized like what my obsessions are, I know I'm pretty consistent on my interests. Podcasting for me was a complete surprise in terms of ADHD. When I started editing podcasts, I thought I was going to get bored out of my mind. And the fact that I don't, and that I'm interested in it, and I can focus for an hour and just edit a podcast, is fascinating to me, because I've never really had the ability to focus like that before. So my next challenge, wrangling my ADHD, trying to make successful podcasts, trying to be interesting, live a cool life.
Well, I'm writing some things you are telling, and being consistent on my interests. I think that's the spirit. Well, when you don't start a project thinking one day it will fail, and my head it overworks. Works. Oh, why should you start? One day it will fail anyway. So I try to shut up this voice, this inner criticism, and go on. And consistency is key. And another thing you said about competition, I heard somewhere comparison competition is the thief of joy. And this is so true.
Yeah.
I come from a very competitive family. I don't like to stay with them because they always want to show they are better than me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't care. Many people are better and worse than me. I don't care. I just want to live a good life. I don't want to live a life by showing people I'm better than you and you and you. Oh, come on.
I think you said something as oh, why would you start something when you know it's going to fail? I look at that in terms of like relationships. You don't go into a relationship going, okay, it's our first date. If we don't get married, this is a failure. You go in with like, I want to find somebody I enjoy spending time with, and then the rest can evolve. When me and my partner had our first date, we both said, I'm not looking for anything serious right now. And now we're getting married. So
Oh.
like, it develops, you know? And I don't think it's a failure. I think you're constantly learning. Like I was an animator for 7 years, 8 years, however long. And I don't know if I'm ever going to animate again. Like I just genuinely don't know. I had my problems with it. I had my obsessions with it. And I made good money for the first time in my life while I was doing it. But the fact that it can just get taken away from me on a whim and I don't get to make a living doing this completely at somebody else's whim doesn't agree with me. I want to be in control of my own life and my own finances, and have just being able to be laid off on a whim because a project ends. And that's a constant in animation, is like as soon as the project ends, your contract's done. And that's very frustrating. So do I consider that time a failure? No, I've learned how to be more organized than I've ever been in my life. I've learned how to deal with huge quantities of data and keep them organized, which is what I use every single day when I'm podcasting, is how to just stay organized, how to keep track of stuff. And I'm not perfect. I'm not great at everything. I'm a horrible marketer. Guess what's a huge part of any podcast or any sort of art medium is getting your work out in front of the masses. And I would not say that that's a strength of mine. So that's something I'm working on. But if you start something with the attitude of I'm going to do this because it interests me and I'm going to learn from it, I don't think you can be a failure. You can have failed, but in the process of doing it, I don't feel like a failure. I don't feel like I'm ruining anything in my life. I've learned a lot of useful traits through animation that maybe I'll never use for animation again, but you bet your ass I'm going to apply them to other stuff. Sorry, I swore. I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Oh, this is interesting. I'm on my second career. Before being a podcaster, graphic designer, and now drawing teacher, I was supposed to be a lawyer, and I hated.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I hated to be in court. All that politics and vanity were killing me inside.
Yeah.
But
Sitting at a desk all day was making me feel like I was going to die. Like it just made my anxiety worse than I've ever had.
When I started an internship, I looked at all the processes and books and thought, I need to run away from here.
Well, like, so I was a very successful tumbling coach. Like I was making good money being a tumbling coach, and I did that from age 14 to 30. Like I didn't give that up that recently. I lost my job because of the pandemic. But it kickstarted my animation career. Like I was already in school for multiple years at that point, and I just leaned into it. Like, okay, I can do this from home. I can do this from my desk. Let's lean into this 100%. And I did. Got a job. Enjoyed some of my projects. I really hated some of my projects. And the projects you hate, you're like, this is 3 months of my life I'm never going to get back. And the projects you love, it's still 3 months of your life that you spent sitting at a desk. So I don't know if I loved it. But for me, I realized, like, okay, what did I like about being a tumbling coach? I like interacting with kids. I like interacting with people. I liked being on my feet. I like moving around. And then what did I like about animation? I liked the creative aspect. I liked working with a team. I liked whatever. So I'm taking like everything, like you being a lawyer, I'm sure you learned at least a few things that you've carried over into different aspects of your life.
Oh, for
So to
sure.
me, there is no failing at stuff like that. Like I know my brothers judge me and say I'm still figuring things out, and I am, but they also don't seem happy in jobs they've had for the last 10 years. And they're making consistent money, but also I don't see them smiling or happy at any point, really. So I don't know. I don't know who has the right idea, but as I'm going to take care of me, and for me, it feels like pursuing the next thing is always interesting to me.
Oh, for sure. Indeed, learning the laws helped me to play safe. I
Yeah.
don't put myself in trouble so quickly. I always analyze all the factors before jumping on a project, but uh, well, create my own reality and work with creativity. And I also volunteer with children, and it's a beautiful part of my life. They may make my life more meaningful. Something I wasn't achieving while in my first career. I was just following the flow and trying to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just just doing this, and I I I asked myself who I wanted to be. I didn't want to be the leader of of the free world or the minister as my mother wanted me to be. I just wanted to I just wanted to see a better world and a better place to live. And I don't like politics. I I read, I know, but I don't like to work with politics for too long.
Yeah.
I think it's breaking many good relationships just because people think differently, and it shouldn't be like that. And about new passions, do how do you approach discovering new passions and interests? I'm sure you will have new passions in your life, just like me.
I think there's a lot of beauty in the world, and one of my goals for this year is to add more beauty into my life. So, what does that mean for me? Well, I picked up guitar and I started learning like the traditional like Wonderwall and stuff, and then I started looking for like, I started just coincidentally I found Spanish romance as like a fun genre for me, and it felt very beautiful, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna start learning to play these beautiful songs. So how do I find my next passion? I kind of just pay attention to where my focus is going, anyways. Um, I wouldn't say I'm thankful for my ADHD, but when I can focus on something, um, I clock that. I clock that, and I almost never can figure out why I'm interested in it, but it interests me. So, um, my next passions. I've been getting into gardening. I've been really liking the guitar. I've been having a new wave of enjoyment with video games where like you get to as an adult, you're like, I don't know if this adds anything to my life, but I'm finding a way just to have fun with them again. And I don't know. I think look back on your childhood and your teenage years, and I think you do know like what interests you back then, but you don't always have the mental capacity to say that you want to do those things or say that you're interested in those things in a way where you're able to do them. But when you start making a little bit of money and you can pursue hobbies in new ways, like I bought a guitar. I never thought I'd buy a guitar. I just found the cheapest one I could find on like Craigslist or OfferUp, and I got into it. And now that I've been doing that, I that sparked another interest in me. I like going to estate sales. I found some guitars at estate sales, and then that led me into like, oh, I feel like I'm treasure hunting at estate sales. And it's just like one passion begets another. So I think follow your passion. Like I didn't know I was gonna fall in love with improv as much as I did. I started doing stand up. A friend of mine was like, "Hey, I do improv. You should come do it." And a month later, I started doing improv as well. And then years later, I was looking at my life like, man, I don't feel really happy right now. Oh, well, I'm not that happy doing stand up, but I really love spending time with my improviser friends. And that just kind of stuck around. And so I think say yes to the thing. Like, people always have this attitude of, oh, I could never do that kind of thing. But like, say yes to the things that interest you. And just pursue it. Like if you have somebody you admire and they really love this thing, maybe you could go love that thing with them. Or maybe you go and you decide you hate the thing, but you love the person. Great. They have their own hobby. You can find your own next thing. But I don't know. That's my take on
it. Oh, completely. I think my next passion will be something about sewing. I always loved fashion, but
it. Yeah.
not like the frivolous influencers. But I like to see the history behind what we wear,
Mm-hmm.
and I I really want to learn how to sew
That's cool.
dresses. Oh, I'm passionate with the history of 1940s and 50 clothes. And well, one day, who knows, I will buy a sewing machine to sew some dresses.
I mean, check out estatesale.net and type in sewing machine in the search engine. I see them all the time. So maybe you can pick one up for pretty cheap. But that's a thing too. I think a lot of people get stuck on the financial aspect of starting any hobby. But sometimes you can find somebody who's just willing to trade a sewing machine for something else. So I don't know. Find a way to get your foot in the door, and I bet you won't be upset about it.
Oh, for sure.
That
I
sounds awesome.
actually I had one. My great grandmother gave me. It was an inheritance, but uh, the time she passed away, I was too young to have a
Yeah.
sewing machine, and my I was at the same bedroom as my sister, so I slept with her, and I couldn't have big things on my bedroom. But now, who knows? I will try to look online and buy a second-hand machine.
Yeah. Because it also gets you started. And like if you have to make a repair, sometimes it's easier than you think. You could just Google like what problem you're having, and then now you know how to repair the problem a little bit. So I don't know. I just think it's interesting. I think the more interest you have, the more interesting you are. And I think the more interest you have, the more you realize like, oh, every hobbies has these same little has these same paths you can walk down. But it's just a matter about learning to navigate these paths. So I think the better you get at anything, the easier it is to get better at other things because you can recognize the process a little bit better.
Okay, now the three last questions. How do you define fulfillment in the context of your passions and obsessions?
I think if I spend any amount of time doing them, I feel pretty fulfilled. Like I'll have days where I'll like get in bed at the end of the day and be like, "Oh, I podcasted today. I played some video games. I got to work out. Like this is a pretty good day." Um, I don't know if as humans we're ever allowed to feel fully fulfilled because you always have that lingering of like I could have done more. But I think as long as you can wrangle that in yourself enough to just enjoy what you're already doing, and if you're not enjoying what you're doing, clock that too. Like pay attention to yourself, pay attention to your needs. If you're not meeting your needs, find something else. I think a lot of us work like very passionless jobs that are nothing, and they're just a way to make money. But in your free time, do the thing you want to do. Don't just go in and lay on your couch and watch TV because you feel like you should. That's what you normally do. Like get up and go do a thing. Yeah, that's how I feel fulfilled is doing things.
Oh, uh, well, I completely agree. It's instead of finding a passive activity such as watching TV and binge watching series, we can do many new things And I wish to my life, because we have a long, long, long life.
Well, I
Uh,
think some
the,
like the time's gonna pass anyways, right? I would rather have been playing guitar for 20 years when I hit 53 than not than started at 53 kind of thing. So I think I think it's important also to just kind of define what kind of old person you want to be and try your best to get there. I would love to be an old person who's kind, compassionate, telling stories, playing guitar. That sounds like a cool old man to me, and I want to be that cool old man. So I just kind of starting on it as young as possible.
oh, I want to keep moving for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
I know age comes from all of us, but it's not an excuse to stop. We can
yeah,
keep finding new interests in our lives.
yeah.
And the second to last question, based on your experiences, what advice would you offer to individuals struggling to find a balance between their passions and potential obsessions?
I don't know if you're ever gonna find a balance. It's hard. Like that, making time for the things you care about isn't always the easiest thing, but you find a way to do it. And especially like I don't have kids. If somebody had kids, like it's exponentially harder to make time for your passions. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to find balance. I think um, I'll get I'll get moments in my life where I'm doing something and I'll have no interest in doing it as I'm doing it, and that's usually a cue to me to go do something else. Sometimes I'll be watching TV and it's a show I love, but I'm just not into it that day. Oh, great. Maybe you know what? If I'm not into this, I'll go edit my podcast. I'll go get some work done. And I call it work, but like to me, I enjoy it. Like that's fun for me. Or, oh, I'm editing my podcast. I have no interest in doing this right now. I'll take a 20-minute break to go play some guitar and then I'll get back to this kind of thing. I think you need to find ways to indulge yourself and indulge your interests in ways that like fuel your other interests. Like some artists are great artists because they'll work on a painting, they'll feel stuck, they'll go work on another painting, and people will call them prolific because they're doing that. But to them, maybe it's just like, hey, it just works. Like it's just a habit I found that works. So I think find ways to almost game yourself and find ways to like trick yourselves into being successful. And for me, I feel like a lot of it is um, um, indulging my interests as they come, but also knowing like, okay, if I get these three things done today, I've had a great day. Um, if I've edited a podcast, made a little money, advertised my podcast, that's only three things, but that's three things that I've gotten done today. And I think some days you will look back and be like, man, I don't think I got anything done today. So for me, I always just focus on what three things do I want to get done today. And anything other than those three things, it doesn't matter. I can do whatever I want. As long as I get these three things done, I'll have had a successful day. And I have friends in my life that are like, how do you balance all this? How do you get all this done? I don't feel like I get it all done every day. But what I do every day is I get my three things done. And then that night I'll think about like, okay, what three things do I want to get done tomorrow? In the morning, I'll define it. Sometimes when I shower, sometimes when I'm on my walk. And that's enough for me. Today I'm going to edit the podcast. It looks like I'm getting called into work. And then and doing this, that's three things. I'm technically advertising my podcast right now by being on this lovely podcast and getting to just enjoy myself. This is fun for me. I love this. So that's already one thing off my list. I just have two more to get done today. Anything else is just bonus fun for me.
Oh, great. And the last question, do you have a final message to our listeners?
I feel like I've done so much advocating for go pursue your next thing. Do I have any advice? It's never going to be easy, and you should do it anyways. Like think about something you're an expert in that you know more about than 99% of everybody else, and think about how deep and complicated that is. Everything's like that, and I don't think that should scare you away. I think there's something I heard where if you've read one book on something, you know more than 95% of people. So great. Read the one book on the thing you're interested in, and now you're ahead of 95% of people. And I'm never going to be Jimi Hendrix, but I'm going to keep playing guitar because it interests me. And yeah, the more I learn about the guitar, the more I'm like, wow, this is intimidating how much there is to learn. And that doesn't matter though. I just need to learn the next thing about guitar that interests me, and I'm growing. That's all that matters. As long as I'm progressing, I think I'm doing a great job. And I don't know where I'm always going to end up. I don't know if storytelling's ever going to pay the bills, kind of thing. But hey, I really like working with people and helping them make their stories and working on stories telling. So that's a passion for me. That's an obsession for me. I'm going to do more of it. So don't let doing things scare you away from doing things.
Oh, this is a powerful message. And a bonus question. This one, I promise, is the last. DKLA doors are always open to you. Would you come back if you could?
Oh, absolutely. This was a blast.
Okay, so the invite is done. Thank you very much for giving me the wise words and advice and this light conversation. It was great.
Hey, thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. Like this is a blast. I feel like you're changing your community in one way or another, and I think this is a really beautiful way to do it. So absolutely congrats on all your work so far. I can't wait to listen to the podcast. I can't wait to share it with my friends. And awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And here is the motto of the KLA: inspire and engage.
Yeah.
Bye.